come into your mat, we're going to lay back, nice and flat on our back, finding that little gap between the lumbar spine and the floor. Be mindful of the rib cage, the bottom half of the rib cage wanting to flare and lift. We're going to find that neutral spine, drop the shoulders down. I don't need the top of the shoulder connected to the floor of the mat, the group of rotator cuff muscles. We want to keep the blades of the shoulders right on the other side of the chest, flat against the mat. And we're going to float that right foot just up off of the floor, about an inch or so. Higher is easier, especially if you've got some lumbar stuff going on. It can be easier to extend straight up or forward. This low position can put a little bit more torque depending on if your hip flexors are tight. So we're going to inhale to straighten and lengthen that right leg out across the mat, finding full extension of the knee, and then slow as you draw the heel back towards the hip. You can even drag and glide the foot across your mat if it's slick enough and a smooth surface to be able to get that clean glide. As we're moving that right leg forward into extension and bending at the knee to bring that heel back into knee flexion, we want to make sure that the hips right and left stay level, stay symmetrical. That right hip isn't shifting up or down with the leg. Last one with this right side. And we'll rest the foot to the mat. We're going to float the left foot up, find the weight on that right side, shoulder, hip, and foot. And then on the inhale, we extend that left leg out nice and long and slow to pull that heel back towards the hip. Reaching out as straight and as long as you can with that left leg and slow as it pulls back. Nice and smooth extension, finding that full lockout, that full extension of the left leg, especially at the knee. And then tracking the hips to make sure that they're not shifting out and away as that left leg straightens. You want to keep the obliques engaged on that left side as the left leg glides. We'll do one more on this left side. And slow to bring the leg back, slow to reset. Arms are going to reach nice and long down by your side. We're going to work a little bit of our pelvic tilt. We'll tilt our hips back on the exhale as we scoop and curl, finding that abdominal draw of the belly to the back, knit the ribs in, and then slow to articulate just the hips and the low back to a neutral position. So everything from rib cage up doesn't shift or move on your mat. Working that tilt of the hips, knitting the rib cage in, pulling the abdominals, your belly to your back as you tilt the hips back. On our next C-curve, that next pelvic tilt, we're going to stay in that flexed hollow position. And we're going to tilt over to the right side of the back, right hip. And then maintaining that C-curve, we come back to center and we rock and tilt over to the left. Then the left side of the low back imprint to the mat and slow to reset to center. That nice rock from pocket to pocket, feeling those muscles stretch on either side of the lumbar spine. Ribs draw down and in. The arms are reaching long to pull the shoulders down, away from the neck, away from the ears. Last pelvic tilt as we lean to the left. And we come back to center. And with control, articulate back to a neutral hip and back position. Right leg comes to tabletop with the arms reaching long, and we hinge at the hip, maintaining that bend in the knee as we inhale to lower the foot to the mat and bring the leg back to tabletop. Arms are long, ribs are knitted in. We're drawing the abdominals and engaging the back muscles, pulling everything to our center. The lower that right foot gets to the floor. Right foot comes down, rest to the mat in line with the sit bone. Take a moment to reset, engaging back and abdominal muscles. With left leg to tabletop, we hinge on the inhale to lower the foot to the mat. Hinging at the hip, maintaining that nice 90-degree bend at the knee, and we're allowing that left leg to move smoothly in the hip. Last one, left foot rests back to the mat. Align the heels with the sit bones. Reach the arms nice and long. And on the exhale, we're going to tilt the hips back and we're going to peel and lift up into our shoulder bridge, our pelvic curl, articulating off of the mat. One segment, one piece of the spine at a time. Pausing for that breath at the top. And on the next exhale, we start through the back of the ribs, that mid-back along the spine as we curl and roll down, along the floor, all the way through slowly back towards the tailbone, keeping the ribs knitted in, trying not to overextend the back. We tilt the hips and begin to peel and lift. Dropping and pulling the chest down and in as the hips come up higher, so we don't get that extension in the mid and upper back or that rib cage flare. We need some movement in the ankles to allow the shin and the knee to start to move forward as the hips begin to lift up off of the mat. The neck stays nice and long as you reach the arms down the side. Full articulation along the back. Last pelvic curl. Our legs come to tabletop, some space between the knees, so we're lined up with our sit bones, and we're going to work into our leg changes. We're going to start moving one leg at a time. Right foot lowers to the mat and returns to tabletop. And then the left side moves. We're going to alternate from side to side. Drawing the rib cage together, feeling that engagement of the muscles along the spine, up the back, and pulling our abdominals to our center and down towards the spine. Nice smooth hinge of the leg in the hip. We're not moving the knee joint. We're moving completely from the hip. Nice smooth glide from side to side. And now we can start changing simultaneously. As the right leg returns to tabletop, the left leg starts to lower to the floor. Nice smooth movement from leg to leg, hip to hip. Reaching long with the arms, gliding the shoulder down the back. Neck stays long. Two more each side. And feet rest back to the floor. Legs come together. Arms can either stay down by your side or move out to a T position, palms up towards the ceiling. And we're going to tip the legs from the mid-ribs, twisting through the mid-back over to the right on the inhale. Anchor that left side of the chest and the shoulder blade to the mat. Pull the rib cage in. We're going to stretch. And next exhale, we come back to center. On the inhale, we tip and twist over to the left, anchoring the right side of the shoulder blade and bringing the right chest down into the mat. Exhale, coming back to center. And once again, we twist to the right, anchoring the left upper back to the floor and back to center. Last one over to that left side. And into center. Arms can either stay at your T or down by the side of the body. We'll bring our legs to tabletop position, and we're going to work our single leg extensions. On the inhale, right leg glides forward, straight out, nice and long, and exhale to pull it back. Switching to the left side, we're going to alternate, one leg at a time. Making sure that we find that full extension, that full lengthening of that right leg as it reaches out. Left leg moves forward. We fully extend, feel the knee lock out and the quad engage. Ribs draw in. Feeling that knitting and zipping as we brace through our center line, both abdominals and back extensors, so that they're working 50-50 to help support and keep a nice stable spine as the legs move away from your center. One more each side. And feet rest to the mat. We're going to go into our butterfly stretch, soles of the feet together. Arms are going to move out to a T position, palms up towards the ceiling. Pull the rib cage in, pull the belly in nice and tight. Let the back sink into the floor as the knees fall out to the side. You could even rock a little bit from hip to hip. Drawing the abdominals in. And we'll slow to unwind the legs. Arms can stay out at a T or return to the side of the body. We're going to move into our spine twist supine, bringing our legs to tabletop, squeezing and hugging through inner thighs. You could also cross the ankles for that more inner thigh connection. And we're going to take our legs, our hips, the low back as one unit to the right, anchoring the left shoulder, drawing the chest on the left side down and in, and exhale to center. Inhale to tip and twist to the left as you anchor the right upper back and shoulder blade down against your mat, and then back to center. Nice smooth glide from side to side, twisting through the mid-ribs right across the bra line. We're We're drawing that straight line across the ceiling with the legs. The whole side of the leg leads the charge to the side. We're not twisting the legs so the knees take over. We want the whole side of the leg as one unit to drop to the side. One more right and left. And feet will come down, resting to the mat. Legs are pulled in together. Arms return down by the side, palms down to the floor, and we'll tilt the hips back. Imprint the low back, create that C curve, that pelvic tilt, and then squeeze against the inner thighs. Legs are pulling together, and then slow to articulate back towards the tailbone. And exhale, tilt and tip back. Feeling that engagement at the adductors, at the inner thighs as you tilt. One more. And slow to reset the hips and back to the mat. Legs come to tabletop position, keeping that connection at the inner thigh. And on the inhale, we're going to hinge at the hip, keeping the knee bend as we lower the feet towards the mat. And exhale back to tabletop. The first few reps, I don't want you to try to touch the mat necessarily with your feet. Warm up the movement. Check in with the hips. Make sure that we're not creating too much torque in the pelvis. It's going to pull and ratchet the hips forward. We want to keep that nice little gap at the low back. And then see on these last few reps if you can toe or heel tap the mat. Hinging at the hip, keeping the knee stable. Last two. Inhale as the feet lower. And exhale, returning to tabletop. One more. And knees hug in to the chest, wrapping the arms around the shins, allowing the low back to flex and decompress. And arms come down by our side. Legs return to tabletop. Find that little gap at the small of the back. And we're going to extend just the right leg up towards the ceiling, keeping the left leg in tabletop. Hugging through inner thighs, pressing the knees together on the inhale. Legs, hips, low back, drop over and to the right, onto that right hip, and exhale back to center. Tip and twist over and to the left. So we're going back into that spine twist supine movement with the right leg extended up towards the ceiling. Reaching that right leg nice and long, keeping the shoulder blades connected to the mat as you sweep right to left. Finding that rotation through the mid-ribs right across the bra line as you move from side to side. One more right and left. And we come to center and pause, creating a little space between the legs. On the inhale, right leg lowers down to the mat. Flex at the ankle, exhale to lift. We'll point the toes on the inhale to lower that straight leg towards the floor. Flex at the ankle, draw the foot back towards the shin as we exhale and kick up towards the ceiling. One more with that right leg. And we'll bend the knee. Bring knees in towards the chest. Quick breath and reset. And legs return to tabletop. Left leg extends up towards the ceiling, reaching that left leg up nice and long, and on the inhale we tip to the left. Onto that left hip, anchoring the right shoulder blade to the mat, and exhale to center, and we sweep across to the right. Finding that rotation through the mid-ribs as we twist from side to side. Last one, each side. And we pause at center, creating some space between the knees in the inhale. Left leg straight and long, lowers to the mat. Flex at the ankle and kick that left leg back up. Point the toes and slow to lower. Reaching that left leg out long. Draw your belly to your back. Pull the rib cage in. Reach long with the arms. Last one. And knees hug in. And we're going to work a stretch. Let's send that right leg out across the mat, drawing that left knee in towards the chest. And I want to flex at the right ankle to draw the foot back towards the shin, and the leg from the hip is going to externally rotate out as if to 2 o'clock on a clock, and then internally rotate in towards 10 o'clock. And we want the rotation to be the thigh from the hip. No shearing or twisting in the knee or at the ankle. We don't want the foot to continue to move past what the upper leg will allow for that external and internal rotation. So we want to make sure that the foot doesn't twist, the ankle doesn't move out of position as that right leg twists in and twists out. Pausing that right leg at 12 o'clock, we're going to take the left knee across and over towards that right shoulder, stretching along the outside of that left hip and thigh. Left arm can come out to a T position, and you can look out over that left shoulder as you twist and take that left leg to the right. One more breath. And back to center. We'll change sides, bringing the right knee to the chest. Left leg lengthens out across the mat, stretching out nice and long. And then we'll flex at the left ankle to draw the top of the foot back towards the shin. And we twist the left leg out towards 10 o'clock for that external rotation. And then internal rotation towards 2 o'clock. Nice smooth rotation and twist of the leg in the hip. Again, we're keeping the movement out of the knee and out of the ankle. Pausing at 12 o'clock, we're going to take the right knee and we're going to draw it cross-body over to the left, towards the left shoulder. Right arm can move out to a T, and you can look out over that right arm, right shoulder. As you stretch along the hip and along the side of the thigh. Holding for another breath. And we come back to center. Bending the knees, bringing the feet back in line with the sit bones. Arms are going to reach nice and long down by your side. We're going to work our strict shoulder bridge. No articulation. We're going to press through the feet to lift the hips up. Press the knees forward towards the front of the foot, engaging the glutes as you lift the hips up. And slow to lower. Nice and smooth as the hips lift, pressing the knees forward towards the toes. Nice and smooth glide, folding at the mid-ribs as the hips lift. Last one. And legs come to tabletop, hugging through inner thigh. Reaching the arms nice and long, gliding the shoulders down away from the neck and the ears. We inhale to straighten and lengthen the legs forward. And slow to draw back towards tabletop. Without the chest lift, we're going to reach a little higher towards the ceiling to start off with. Trying to keep some of the torque out of the hip, that pressure off the low back. And then you can start working more forward. Drawing the abdominals in, knitting the rib cage together. Using both muscles in the back and the abdominals to support the spine as the legs reach away. One more. And feet lowered to the mat. Knees fall out to the side. Back to that butterfly stretch. And we're going to stay in our butterfly position. Arms are going to reach up towards the ceiling, and we're going to work our chest lift. On the exhale, as the arms lower, we're going to fold and lift at the midribs to lift the head, neck, and chest. And slow to reset. Using this butterfly position for our feet and our legs helps us to shut off at the psoas and at the hip flexor to really engage those upper segments of abdominal muscles. We want to find that nice deep fold at the mid-ribs as we lift the head, neck, and chest. Last two. And slow to reset. Arms coming down nice and long down by your side. We're going to bring our legs to tabletop position. Extend the legs up towards the ceiling nice and long, and we're going to hinge. We're going to tip from side to side, twisting through the mid-ribs as we drop over to the right. And exhale back to center. We're going to roll from hip to hip. Reaching the legs nice and long. Nice and smooth glide from side to side, twisting through the mid-ribs to rock from hip to hip. One more right and left. And knees come to tabletop. We hug the knees in. We're going to curl and roll up into our teaser prep hold position. Sitting up nice and tall, floating the legs to tabletop. We hinge back just a little bit. Extend the spine. And when you're ready, hands come off. And we hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feet down, soles of the feet together. We're going to hinge forward, nice flat back. Extending the spine, lifting the chest. And slow to restack, sitting as long and as tall as you can. We're going to straighten the legs. Bring the legs mat width apart. Hands come to the front. We go chin to chest, and we forward fold, rolling out and stretching forward out over the legs. Try to take hold of the legs, the ankles or the feet, to bring yourself forward over the thighs. Staying away from that shrugged shoulder position as you stretch forward over the legs. Allow the ankle joint to move to pull the top of the foot back towards the shin and then press the knees down. Feeling that stretch travel all the way up the back of the legs. And slow to restack. Sitting up nice and tall, nice and long. We hinge back and sit tall. Trying to hinge at the hip. One more. And forward fold, chin to chest. We curl and roll forward. Reaching for the feet once again. Hinge at the ankle to draw the top of the foot back and then press the legs down. Sliding the shoulders down away from the head, away from the neck. Nice and slow with your breath. And slow to restack. Sitting up taller, stretching longer. And we hinge once again at the hip, leaning back and sitting tall. Last two. And chin to chest, forward fold, reaching out over the legs, stretching farther. Bringing in that calf stretch to draw the top of the foot back towards the shin as you press the knees down. And slow to restack. We're going to come to a kneeling position for a thigh stretch. Coming up to that kneeling position nice and tall. I'm going to bring my feet together and take more of an external rotation, that turnout of the knees from and the legs from the hips. Feet are pressing together, arms are going to come to the front, engaging engaging the glutes as we hinge at the knee to fall back towards the feet, and then rising nice and tall. We hinge at the knee, feeling that stretch coming up the thighs, that zipping of the abdominals up the front of the body, and that co-contraction with the back extensors to hold that nice neutral spine. Kneeling nice and tall, hands are going to come to the hips. We're going to sit back towards the heels, just hover and rise. Finding that full extension of the hip. Sitting back, finding that hover position, and rise. Keep pressing the feet, the heels together as best you can. We won't sit all the way down to the feet. We want to come to just that hover position. One more. And arms return to the front, and we go back to that thigh stretch, hinging at the knee. And rise. Doesn't have to be a big movement. And pausing at the top, hands to the hips, and we sit back towards the heels. And up. Last two. We're going to square our legs off. Let's bring our right foot up and forward and work that hip and thigh stretch on the left side. Shoulders down, ribs and abdominals knit in. Hands come down to the mat. We're going to walk that right foot across and lay that leg down for our pigeon stretch. And I want to lift the chest, slight little arch in the back to isolate that stretch deep into that right hip. And then we slide that right leg back, sit back, stretch back for that rest position. And slow as we come forward. Left foot comes forward, coming up to that lunge position. We're going to drive the left knee forward, press the hips forward and down. Slight engagement in the glute on that right side, pulling the ribs in, abdominals and back engaged to support the spine. And then hands to the mat, and we're going to walk our foot, that left side, over to the right, back into that pigeon stretch and chest lifts. A little bit of back extension to, again, isolate that stretch deep into that left hip. And left leg slides back. Sit back towards the heels, reaching the arms nice and long overhead. And curling up Let's come cross-legged. Sitting down, crossing the ankles, or you could also go to that butterfly position or straight legs. Arms come up overhead. We're going to reach up long. Anchor the left hip as you take the rib cage and the shoulders to the right. And back to center. Reaching and lengthening up towards the ceiling. Anchor the right hip as the rib cage and shoulders move to the left. And back to center. Stretching up. One more each side. Pressing the hips down, especially the opposite hip, as you take the ribs and the shoulders over to the other side. And lift up and move over. We come back to center, curling forward, walking the hands forward, stretching out nice and long. Curling up, restacking the back, restacking the spine, fingers interlace. We're going to open and expand the chest, chest lifts. And arms rest down by your side. All right, guys. Awesome work today. Thank you so much.